Hello, my name is Matthew Philbrick, host of The Real Game, a podcast by coaches for coaches. Welcome to episode 7 of The Real Game, a podcast by coaches for coaches. We have today what I would consider to be a pretty interesting topic at hand, and I've brought in some experts to help us wade through this today. The topic we're going to be discussing today is the difference between coaching boys and girls. So in my 25 years of coaching, I have coached some girls here and there, not a lot, mostly soccer. My area has been mostly in coaching high school boys. I knew for this topic, though, I'd have to bring in a couple of guys that really know what they're doing and have a lot of experience in this area. So first off, I'd like to introduce Rick Harrison. Rick and I coached together in Indiana for 5 years. We had the privilege of coaching his sons together there and experienced a lot of success there. But Rick, you've been coaching for a long time, and you've coached a lot of girls' teams. Most recently, I think, up at Summit University in Clark Summit, Pennsylvania. You enjoyed some success there and won a championship. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your coaching journey, kind of how you got started and how it's brought you to where you're at now?
I don't even remember what I did yesterday.
Well,
I'll try.
Dig deep.
I started in Indiana back in the late 80s, and I was coaching guys soccer, guys basketball. Did that for a couple of years, left for a little while, and then I was coaching a lot of younger kids, with my sons. And I coached them in soccer, basketball, in different like city leagues, rec leagues, if you want to call it that. But I want to totally coach them. I wanted them to get a taste of other people as well. So I wasn't like doing them all the time. And I got back into coaching into school again later on, and did the guys varsity JV. And then you came along, and then I helped you, assisted you for 5 years, and that was a great 5 years. And then during that time, well, even just a little before that time, maybe, they asked my wife, because they were starting a girls program, so they asked her to help, thinking she would know basketball since she was married to a basketball coach. So she'd come home, ask me questions, and I'd tell her different things. And then before long, then I just kind of started talking to some of the coaches, like they would ask me things. And then I started being at some practices and everything. So then I started getting involved with the ladies. And but then after you left, I went back I was coaching girls and guys both when you left Indiana, and still doing soccer as well. And then God called us to Northland International University, where I coached the ladies there for a couple of years. And then I coached the guys 1 year, and then the school closed. And then we went to Myrtle Beach, and then I coached down there like 5th and 6th grade guys, 7th and 8th grade guys, JV varsity guys, JV varsity girls baseball, ladies soccer. And then after a few years, God brought us to Clark Summit University up there in Pennsylvania, where I was there the last 4 years. And then this past year, I helped a young lady who started her career as a coach down here at called First Baptist Academy in Naples. So I was her assistant.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Kind of the journey.
Yeah. And that's a lot of coaching experience from kids all the way up through college age girls. And that'll definitely come in handy here in our discussion in a couple of minutes, but I want to shift focus over to Tim for a little bit. Tim, why don't you kind of do the same thing and just give us a little overview of your coaching history?
Yeah. My high school coach and I were very close, and he had a tremendous impact on my life growing up. So I knew if there was ever an opportunity for me to coach and potentially have the same impact on the next generation, I would love that. And I graduated college in 2003 and was talking to the AD over at Calvary Baptist in Lansdale, and he mentioned there was going to be an opening. So I said, okay. So my wife and I were just married and started coaching there. So I coached the varsity boys for 2 years over at Calvary. And then my wife and I were starting to have a family. And so I stopped coaching after the 2006, 2007 time frame. And then I really didn't pick it back up again until my oldest, who is now 16. She was probably around 8 years old, and she was having an interest in playing basketball. So I started coaching all her township leagues again. And then my wife and I, we have 3 girls. So I decided, hey, might as well stay on the girls' side of coaching. And then when my oldest was in 6th grade, an opportunity came to coach middle school girls at Calvary. Worked with a great group of girls. And as they got older and were ready to move up to varsity, an opportunity allowed me to move up there with them. So that's where I've been the past 3 years, is coaching varsity girls basketball at Calvary.
Awesome. And you guys have both enjoyed success. You both know what you're doing. You both have a good system in place, and you've enjoyed some success over the years. So in a second, we're going to jump right into some of the questions. I just want to clarify for our listeners, first of all, that our goal in this discussion is just to be as objective as possible. We're not trying to be sexist. We're not trying to label girls and guys anything. But I do, even in the brief experience I've had, I do know that there are some differences in coaching girls and guys, and maybe not in X's and O's and things like that, but there's some definitely some differences that we want to talk about, and maybe just be a help to some other coaches who maybe they're transitioning from one to the other. They're not sure down the road, they might coach girls or coaching boys now, but either way, our goal is just to be helpful. And I think that our discussion will lead us in that direction today. So Rick, I'm going to start with you. This is just boom. Let's get right to the point. Okay. From your experience, do you think girls should be coached differently than boys?
In my experience, I haven't coached different. I coach them the same. Like when it comes to drills and different things like that, like I do the same thing. I might have to scale back, and it doesn't matter if I have girls or guys, depending on the talent I've had. I've had to adjust, and do different things with the drills. But like coaching, like it's, for me, this is just me talking. For me, it's always been the same who I've coached. It hasn't mattered. And the ladies, they like to be coached. If you want to say, where you're not, say, like not being, okay, let's just, play and have fun, type of thing. I mean, right. They'd like to dig in, and they like to work hard. And then of course, if they see fruit, from the work that they put in, it definitely helps. But I mean, they're just as gung ho as the guys and will work just as hard. So, I've never coached any different when it comes to either one.
That's good. That's a great answer. I think that no matter who we're talking about, whether it's guys or girls, in this case, we're going to be talking specifically more about girls. There's always going to be exceptions too. Some girls might like to be coached more like guys. Some guys might like to be coached more like girls. But some coaches, depending on the nature of their coaching style, are going to be very consistent no matter which one they're coaching. I know a lot of different kinds of coaches. Some of them are yellers and screamers. Some of them are more passive. So I think maybe it just depends on the type of coach that you are too. But Tim, let's come over to you for a second. What do you think of this statement? You should be more blunt and direct when coaching boys because they aren't as sensitive as girls.
Yeah, I think as a coach, it's imperative upon the coach to know their players, and varsity guys, varsity girls, and how you get across to them. So for some players, you can be more blunt, and some for other players you have to take a different approach. But it's imperative upon the coach to figure that out and to know how they handle the players and how they're going to get the best response and the best effort out of their players from that. So for me, it has always been get to know your players, and from there you'll know how they will respond.
So regardless of whether they're guys or girls,
Yep.
The important part is know your players, and then you'll know how to relate to them and how they're going to respond in any scenario.
And I agree, and I agree 100% with what Rick said. My practice is identical.
Mm-hmm.
Looked at how I coach varsity boys and varsity girls, identical practice schedule.
Yep. That's a good point. Rick, sometimes there's conflict within a team. We've probably, all three of us as coaches, experienced that at some level, maybe not all the time, but do you think boys are more likely to move on more quickly after conflict than girls, and are girls more likely to carry it with them and let it fester and perhaps disrupt team performance more?
Me being a guy, yes, I can move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have in my life when I played. So judging from that, girls, I think, it tends to fester a little more, with the experiences that I've had anyways. And to try to, get them to work things out. I'm not saying guys, it doesn't carry over some too, because it does.
Sure.
But usually, when the ball goes up, the jump ball at the beginning of the game, guys can just pretty much go at it and not think a thing about it. And then after the game, they might think about it again, where sometimes during the game, it can be a little bit, whatever, like somebody's not passing it to me, or whatever, type of thing, know? And so yeah, from my experience, I think, it could possibly fester a little longer with the ladies, and you got to get it straightened out as quick as you can.
Yeah, Tim, is that kind of your experience too, or do you find it to be about the same?
I feel like it's about the same.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't seen much carryover, one way or another, and my assistants do a tremendous job, and they feel the pulse as well. If I'm missing something,
sure,
they'll come alongside. Hey, look at this, watch this, keep your eye on this. So as a team and a unit, we're sort of working that out together.
Good. Tim, in your experience coaching both boys and girls teams, do you believe boys sometimes are more overconfident while girls tend to lack confidence?
No, I don't. I think what happens a lot of times is the boys will take a little bit more chance and liberty within the offense and within the defense and within the scheme, and the girls will follow the game plan to the T. And so that's a teaching experience on both sides. When I coach varsity boys, I had to keep re-emphasizing, stay within the game plan, because they were taking so many chances. And then on the other side, it's teaching the girls to, what about this? Did you think about this? Did you react on this?
Right.
No, I think it's how they look at the game plan. And I think boys will take a little bit more chance and liberty, and the girls will follow the game plan. And they both have positives and negatives to them.
Right.
And teach them through it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think whether it's girls or boys, there's value in sticking to the game plan. There's also value in seeing opportunities outside of the game plan and taking advantage of those. I can remember, and Rick, I'm just going to give this example. You may or may not remember this, but when I was coaching in Indiana, I was still a fairly young coach at that point. I think Rick pulled me aside and kind of, we had a discussion. We had gotten to be good friends and close coaches. And he just kind of said, hey, maybe we give these guys a little leeway on offense, and we're not quite so structured with it, because we were coaching. I mean, at that point, we were coaching a team of very, very talented kids. And I think maybe at that point, he saw the value in giving them a little more leash and letting them, I hate the word freelance in basketball because it's not really what it is, but But I totally understand what you're saying. There's value in both sides. So that's a great point. Rick, I've never known you to be a harsh person or a harsh coach or a yeller or anything like that. But do you think harsh criticism can be more damaging to female athletes as opposed to male athletes?
To me, I think both, honestly. Depending how the person goes at it. I've always told the truth, and it may seem harsh to them.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done it in a harsh way, but I have told the truth if I felt like they weren't doing something they should be doing, or things they need to work on or whatever. Like if they weren't playing enough or something like that. I've been truthful with them, but I would think, knowing how I was too, like as a guy, I didn't care for the harsh criticism that the coach would give me,
right,
when he'd just really just kind of berate me. And so I think that's kind of what's made me the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do that to people. So I think it doesn't matter if it's girl or guy. I think, they don't care for it. And it seems like today's player is a little more like that too, where they don't care so much for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there definitely was a point in time, maybe in days gone by, where that kind of coaching was more prevalent and it was maybe more expected. We call it old school or whatever you want to call it. But I think those days of just being up in kids' faces and berating and stuff like that, I think those are less common, if you will, than they used to be.
If I could just interject one thing.
Definitely.
The Lord allowed us. I took different people, different years, but 5 years in a row to the Czech Republic to do a basketball camp. And like the parents and everything loved the way that we taught them, because it was, it was a lot of love. We weren't berating them. We were just, come on, you can do it, whatever. And just kind of, really encouraging to them, which I know as a coach, that doesn't necessarily fit in all the time, but with them, that's what we did. And the parents loved it. And over those 5 years, the people out there told us the coaching out there was changing as they saw the way we were, and that it was working. They were less berating, because they used to just embarrass them, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it's just kind of neat to see how that changed that culture over there a little bit. So,
and that's neat that you guys were able to do that, and you probably never even had a conversation with them about that, but they were just able to see through your testimony and through your example of what you were doing, how that kind of shifted the culture there. So that's a great story, man. That's a great story. Tim, studies have shown girls to be more emotion driven than boys. So when it comes to team building, do you think girls benefit more from boys? Like in terms of activities outside of school, doing things together, maybe going to a movie or eating out and things like that. Do you think girls benefit more from that stuff than boys do?
Again, I think it's knowing your team. There's some teams that I've coached over the years, and there's just an automatic closeness, and so there's an automatic team building that has occurred. And whether you're in practice for an hour and a half or you're on the weekend, they're together. And then there's some teams that I've coached over the years, and just doesn't have that dynamic or makeup to it. So the importance of team building is crucial. So I think it really depends on the team. And again, knowing your team, just to have a team building, just to say you can, you got together, I don't think has the same effect. I think it has to be a purpose driven.
Right.
And so it's depending on the makeup of the team. And some years you may have to do it a little bit more. And some years it's just a naturalness to it. So I think that's the way I always approach it as a coach, is feeling how the players are reacting to each other, and then going from there.
Yeah, that's good. Those are good comments, and there's probably a lot. There's probably a lot that plays into a lot of factors that play into that. There could be personality types. There could be what kind of history do the teams have together. How long have they been playing together? You and I have experienced the last couple of years groups of kids that have been playing together for a long time. So that right there breeds itself to be maybe in nature more close. And go ahead.
And I will say, you should never go a year without doing any team building. I think it's crucial for the players and the parents to see you outside the gym walls and get to know you outside of just the X's and the O's. So I think it's imperative for you to see them at a restaurant and just sitting and talking about other things, and then the next game coming up. But really, okay, what's going on in school? What's going on in life? And just building that relationship. So it would be wrong, I think, not to have some type of team building
Definitely.
just to get to know your players outside the walls.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Rick, in your experience, do you think this statement is true? Male athletes may be more motivated to practice and learn new skills when their performances are compared to teammates. On the flip side, female athletes may respond best when their progress is charted against their own performance standards.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't think there's really any difference there too much, honestly. But I know guys are built a little different. Like I say, just knowing how I was, once again, is what I'm going by, and how they try to sometimes feel like they got to show up somebody else so they get the playing time. The ladies don't seem that as much, but the ladies definitely, the ones I've had, especially in the last couple of years, definitely thrived on, because different drills that I would do, like different shooting drills or things like that. They loved to see how they were progressing as individuals, but at the same time, there were some ones that, wanted to dominate the drill, wanted to be the top dog. So, so there was, that, which was good. It wasn't bad, competition in that at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would think, I don't think it really matters. I think it kind of goes across to both, they'll want to kind of, in a sense, be better than the teammate if they can.
Right. And Tim, from your experience, would you agree with that pretty much on your side, or?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was just talking to my daughter a couple of weeks ago, sort of about that. And I was explaining to her my senior year, which was in 1999. I hurt my team because I was so concerned about my stats. And whether we won or lost was almost secondary. I had my own individual goals that I wanted to achieve to the detriment of the team. And unfortunately, I didn't learn that till 5-10 years later. Looking back, it's like, man, I was selfish. I've been blessed coaching girls that they really put the team first, which has been awesome to see. And it's about the team more than the individual. But I just know for myself, like you said, Rick, there's a lot of W's that I missed out on because I was a selfish player.
Yeah, I know that those are good comments on both your parts. And I definitely see, I think I see with guys, and again, you guys have coached girls a lot more than I have, but I do see with guys that they seem a lot more motivated to beat the other guy. I want to be top dog. Maybe it's just like an alpha male kind of thing. I'm not sure. And I see, like, I've come through practices and stuff when our volleyball coach is in, and I see her charting a lot of things like girls' progress. You did this in this drill in this amount of time the first time. Can you beat yourself again? And I guess it could just be in the approach or what kids are expecting and stuff. But those are good comments from both of you. So listen, the last thing I want to talk about here is probably the most controversial thing that we'll talk about in this interview. But there's no question, both of you, and you guys know this, that there is a societal push for biological males who identify as females to be able to perform in female sports. As this trend advances, how will it impact female sports either positively or negatively? And Tim, let's have you go first.
Yeah, I think obviously it's going to impact it, and I believe in it in a negative way. And I know there's a lot of pushback happening at the state levels and the local levels, and some are succeeding and some are not. But it will have a major impact, and I believe in it in a negative way. And it's hard to reverse that once it gets moving.
Right. Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
I used to tell people I was dreading the day when I walked in with my ladies. There were 5 guys on the other sideline. It was going to be like, ugh.
Yep.
I do believe in the last 3 years, like there were a couple teams that had like one, and it was just, I didn't like seeing it, of course,
right.
Because I'm totally agree with Tim. It's just totally negative effect. I mean, because we all know, guys are built so much different biologically than girls.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I mean, this goes a little beyond that, but the reason why I love coaching the ladies is because the game is still so pure, and the movement and the passing and all that is, so much better. And if guys get involved, it's going to junk it up. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to see that.
I hear you loud and clear.
But I definitely, believe it's going to not have a great or even a good impact at all if that happens.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't. And
I think if we interviewed 100 girls, just my take on this is that 100 girls would probably agree that this is not going to go anywhere good, and they're not happy about it.
Yeah. Well, especially at that level that you guys are at, because, if they're playing, they're taking spots on the level I was just at away from
mm-hmm.
girls that deserve to be there. But I mean, what coach isn't going to go after somebody that's better?
Right.
I wouldn't want to, but I'm just saying most, would do that, and it would just be horrible.
Yeah. It definitely is coming down the road where this is going to impact us on a personal level. I just read an article, actually just a couple of days ago, of a Christian school in Vermont who forfeited a tournament game because the opposing team had a transgender athlete, male, playing on a female team. And I think that there are going to be more instances of that coming up. And if people don't start putting their foot down and saying enough is enough, and we don't like this, and people need to, stay with what their biological assignment is, then we're going to start seeing a lot more controversy, unfortunately. Yep. So anything you guys want to add to that before we kind of wrap things up here? Looks like a no. All right. Well,
I can say one thing.
Yeah, definitely.
To Tim, and to you, Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one thing that Jordan told me one time. A lady coach that helped him at Milton Hershey.
Yep.
And she said, girls need to feel good to play good. Guys need to play good to feel good. And
that's awesome, man.
That is so true.
Yep.
That is so true.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of truth to that. But listen, I appreciate having you guys on here, and not just that, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate the things we've been able to do together in different times that we've worked together. Rick in the past, Tim now with you. You guys just keep doing what you're doing, keep coaching, keep impacting young people's lives, and know that there are definitely rewards in heaven for you guys for doing so.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you having us.
Appreciate that.
All right, guys. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with coaches Rick and Tim. I'd like to leave you today with a quote by Mia Hamm. Mia is a former American professional soccer player, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and 2-time FIFA Women's World Cup champion. Hailed as a soccer icon, she played as a forward for the United States women's national soccer team from 1987 to 2004. Ham was the face of the Women's United Soccer Association, the first professional women's soccer league in the United States, where she played for the Washington Freedom from 2001 to 2003. The quote is this: "My coach said I run like a girl, and I said if he ran a little faster, he could too." Good luck, coaches, and coach on.